Welcome to the podcast. It's Peter here from the Tourism AI Network. Super excited for today's episode, actually. I'm talking to a good old friend here, Jeremy Adamson, who is a colleague I met at the Haskayne School of Business when we did our executive MBA together. And I gotta say, Jeremy was one of the guys in the class that was probably, I'd say maybe probably the absolute most analytical guy in the class, certainly one of the most intelligent guys in the class and a guy I just love getting to know and work with in various different projects and things like that. And so Jeremy and I actually connected recently about artificial intelligence, which is something he's been pretty passionate about and working on for the last little while. And he also just wrote this pretty awesome book called Geeks with Empathy. So we're going to talk today a little bit about Geeks with Empathy. We're also going to talk a little bit about AI. But before we do that, why don't we say hello to Jeremy and let him introduce himself?
Hey, Peter, thanks very much for having me. And absolutely honored to be here. And the feelings mutual. Really enjoyed our time together in the MBA program. So yeah, Jeremy Adamson, I've been working in data and analytics for better part of the last 20 years, really. And over the past several years, moving more into consulting and the strategic angle of things, helping companies that are investing in data analytics to realize value in it. So a lot of helping set up teams and understanding how to, connect the line between technology and the business.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, I mean, I I got your book, and I gotta say, I didn't really actually know what to expect. I didn't really know what it was going to be about, but your introduction a little bit kind of teased, I think, in my mind a little bit about what it's about in the context of you're sort of a data guy, analytics guy, and then now you're kind of more into more management, helping companies sort of actually sort of put that data and analytics to work and really my I didn't haven't read the whole book yet, so I still got a ways to go. But my
Right.
impression of the book is it's about sort of the human in the loop almost like and the importance of being humans in this whole process and sort of humanizing the IT function and sort of the data function. Is that would that be a fair assessment in your mind as to kind of what the book's about?
I think so, yeah. I think if I can be superficial, it's about how to be more successful as a technology worker. And for those that work with the technology function as a stakeholder, how to understand better and work with them. And the premise is that the technology is certainly important, but it's only an enabler. If it's in isolation, really it has no value. It's only when you use that technology to elevate people that you're actually adding value. If I can maybe go a level deeper though, being more successful is a little bit trite. It's also about how to be more satisfied and engaged with your work. And that same idea that if your role is to implement technology, if you're comfortable with that, you feel like that's your mandate, that's really the same thing that's going to make you feel miserable at the end of the day. Because if you're just servicing this, technological abstraction and you think moving data is how you add value, then the people you work with can only ever be obstacles to you. They get in the way, they're random, they're a nuisance. But when you change your thinking from I'm moving data from A to B to I'm helping Jenny make better decisions or I'm helping Tommy understand the way that his unit works better, but then all of a sudden you're connected to your tribe and you feel much more like you're part of the system.
Hmm.
And it's just much more personally rewarding. So hoping that the book helps people in that journey.
Yeah, no, and I think similarly on the other side as a user of technology, as opposed to seeing, a guy like you as just like, here's a guy that's gonna make this or that happen. It's like actually here's a guy who has some great ideas on how to move our entire organization forward and how to solve big complex business problems and those types of things. I mean, that's a pretty empowering thing as well, I think, from the business side. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have that trust, if you don't have that person-to-person relationship, but a lot of the time you just think, I need to tell this person exactly what's going to happen because he doesn't understand the business like I do. But
Right.
as you get to know each other, as you understand what the other person brings to the table, you come up with a collaborative solution. And that's always going to be the best one rather than that distrust that leads to order giving and order taking mentality.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. So I really actually enjoyed the book from the perspective it kind of there's some storytelling in there. And so obviously the book came from a pretty authentic place. That was my impression of it. So can you give me a little insights as to sort of what caused you to actually want to write this book?
Yeah, to what why I wrote the book and it's always been in the back of my mind really. I wrote one that's strictly about managing a data function and that was more of a textbook type of thing. But since that came out and since I started teaching at university, I was teaching a course on technology strategy. I've had, several mentor relationships since then. People reach out on social media, they have questions about their careers. And I was finding people in technology were struggling at a personal level and really a professional level. If you land in a digital native company, if you're at Google, you went to a top tier university, good on you. You're going to be fine. You're going to be surrounded by like-minded people. They speak your language. But for 99% of people that land in a legacy company, it's going to be a struggle because the more you do what you were taught to do, the less value you're going to bring. And it's really not their fault because everything is stacked against them. In school, you're taught that every problem is a technical problem. There's only one solution. When you look at job postings, the interview process, it's all very technically oriented. And then you finally get, in the role and you've been there 10 years, nobody really knows you, you're behind the scenes, you ask for a promotion, nobody still gives you any feedback. It's, well, get more technical certifications, go do a master's, and then come talk to me in 5 years. And you end up like that stereotypical churlish, bitter IT person. So that's why I wrote it, I would say, is to help those people struggling in their careers. They're on the edge, they're becoming bitter, they're not getting that feedback. Maybe give them another perspective, help them look around and see their role as being helping people and not just serving technology.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think the timing is obviously pretty awesome for this book. And I just wrote a note down while you're talking about this concept of the legacy company, which is what, I don't know, 98, 99% of the companies in the world. So curious, obviously just shifting a little bit to sort of where we are today. Obviously AI is I'm actually just working on a presentation for the tourism industry conference in Victoria next week and sort of talking about the waves of AI that are NVIDIA's CEO Jensen there talked about these four waves of AI coming and sort of where we're at and things like that. And so, we're at this interesting place where technology is going to transform, in my opinion, literally every aspect of every single one of our lives in very significant ways. So I'm just curious around, this concept of this legacy company that really kind of piqued my interest. And what do these legacy companies need to be doing and thinking about with respect to AI, where we're at, their technology people, like like tell me a little bit about your thoughts about sort of how they need to think about bringing this conversation to the forefront and bringing everybody together.
I'm naturally very bullish on technology. I want technology to be successful, but I'm also a little bit skeptical, especially when we get to, expectations on what technology can do. And I get nervous when companies are trying to use it as a band-aid for underlying cultural issues, operational issues, or they say that, this is our chance to revamp operations and we're going to be an AI-enabled company and we can ignore everything that's going on in the background. We can refocus on this. So I don't think that it's going to be a panacea. It's going to fix all of our problems. But for those that have operational excellence, that have things figured out, that are profitable and are looking for tweaks and ways to make things better, I think absolutely that there's going to be all sorts of opportunities out there. Anything with the synthesis of information, anything with brainstorming, anything with generating content. The person that was going to be the editor for this book effectively had to retire within, 6 months of ChatGPT being released, just because everything he had in the hopper dried up overnight. Fellow's been doing it 60 years. Overnight, that profession was pretty much blown away.
Hmm.
And that could happen to anything depending on, which way the winds blow. So it's an exciting time, but it's a scary time. And that's the advice that I give to all of my clients really is just to take a good mature look at this and focus on the areas that you've already got under control. And I think if you do that, you can wait to see where the chips lie and where development goes, which of the foundational models comes out on top. But there's so many amazing off-the-shelf products that you can use today to realize immediate efficiencies. So there's no need to overextend, I would say, at this point.
I love that advice actually a lot. I'm just looking at my presentation as you're talking and sort of thinking on the fly here. But yeah, I'm very much like so I have kind of five steps I recommend for companies. And first of all, it's sort of just conduct an initial analysis of your business and sort of to your point, it's like, what are your strengths? What are you good at? What are some tasks that are repetitive that maybe a simple tool can come in and automate or whatever, and whatever. What staff do you have? Sort of just do a full analysis of your company, whatever. Then I'm saying invest in some AI literacy so that everybody on the company in the company kind of get on the same page as to what it is, what it isn't, what's possible, what's not possible, sort of manage those expectations as you're discussing. And then, then I talk about creating sort of, cross-departmental working groups. So, and then, you can maybe do some small experimentations, some small tests, some like low risk kind of stuff. Then it's cultivate some, actually make a statement. Here's what we believe, or cultivate some kind of philosophy on AI. Here's where we're at, right? And then from there, it's develop actually a strategic AI roadmap. So like that to me is a process that's probably a 3 to 6 month process, and you haven't even implemented anything yet. You know what I'm
Perfect.
saying? So is that sort of aligned with kind of what you're thinking and what you're saying here?
I love that, especially the idea of collaborative working groups and literacy. I found a lot of the companies that I'm dealing with, they have a very loud, passionate proponent in the room, and they have a big moonshot idea that they have convinced everybody to go with. And like you say, it needs to be more collaborative. It touches on so many parts of the business that you can't just have one person going alone on this. You need a solid plan before you begin to invest.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously you're a pretty brilliant data guy from what I remember and from what I know about you. And so I want to talk a little bit about data because I think that's the other piece that I think a lot of companies probably don't do great. You probably have more insights than I do on that. So is data another area of focus that people need to be sort of spending their efforts on in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, cleaning up data, improving data, whatever, just sort of like hardcore focus on data? Would that be somewhere else you'd recommend people spend some time?
It needs to be. It's quite funny that some of these companies that are going to revitalize their entire industry based on AI can't reconcile financial statements because their data is in such a bad state. And you need to take the time while you're doing what you discussed, putting a strategy in place, these working groups. Take that time to get your house in order, get data governance in place, make sure that you have scrubbing in place, make sure that, all of those pieces are in place before you start to invest in this. Because when you go into AI, it's really going to expose the weaknesses you have in your data infrastructure. So it's going to be critical to have that shored up.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. So it's just going to make everything faster. So more quickly,
Exactly.
all your problems are going to come through and they're going to be more pronounced, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah. So is that sort of a role you play as a consultant? You come in, you help companies with respect to the data piece and cleaning up the data, or like help me understand kind of where you're playing these days.
Yeah, a lot of it is putting a roadmap in front of them so that they can self-serve. I worry about a lot of these people that I deal with, and I want them to be self-sufficient in the future. And a lot of other consultants I find will come in and they will upsell, they'll find follow-on work. It's so important that you have people on staff that are able to support a lot of this stuff. So as much as possible, I find a few people in the organization who have the skill set. I coach them through, I give them a 12 to 18-month plan on how they can be successful and set the table and how to have these focus groups like you discussed and repeated conversations with stakeholders, making sure that their voices are in there and everybody has a piece to play. So as much as possible, I like to set up these self-sufficient systems.
Nice. And so when you talk about the different stakeholders and you talk about stakeholders that have the skill set, are those technical people you're talking about, or non-technical, or both?
It needs to be both. If you have purely technical people in there, then they'll come up with a solution that can't be operationalized and vice versa. If there's no technical people, they'll come up with something that's not feasible. So really you need that partnership. And that's always been an issue for technology function, but it's even more pronounced now because there's so many people outside of technology that are running ahead with AI and not understanding the shortcomings of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. So I'm not a tech guy at all. Yeah, I'm out there pushing AI and talking
Mm,
about AI. But again, I'm a I'm a business process guy. I'm
yeah,
a sort of a big picture vision guy that can see many different things and how they come together. So that's why I actually, again, I'm going out presenting to people and I'm like, yeah, like don't start with tools, don't start with, the solutions start with a process, start with a,
Mhm.
like, and again, and then I bring in guys like you, which you're actually going to be sort of helping us here with the Tourism AI Network a little bit, right? So I
Yeah,
bring in guys like you that are the technical people that can actually come and help and implement and help people think through the actual nitty gritty, right? And so I think that's kind of, if I could take me and you as an example, it's like that's a perfect match or a perfect pairing in my mind.
yeah,
um right, I think that makes is kind of what you're saying.
yeah, absolutely. It needs to be that way.
Yeah. So I'm curious, just about sort of this concept, because I'm just looking at my slides here, and I'm also talking about job loss, which is a big topic in the AI field. And so, in terms of your technical, kind of your lens from a technical perspective, do you see nothing but growth and opportunity in your fields for jobs, or do you see some loss in some areas where things are not going to be as rosy?
There's going to be a shift for sure. There's going to be a ton of demand for people in data governance just to set the table. Like you mentioned, that's a huge weak point for a lot of organizations, and it's something that they always, that they kick that can down the road, and now they really need to deal with that quickly. So people in that field are going to be in hot demand. When you look at traditional AI type of people, data science, machine learning engineers, a lot of them, I imagine, are going to shift focus. They're going to rebrand as generative AI experts. I think where the job losses are going to happen are with people that are involved in information synthesis, business advisory functions, those types of things.
Hmm.
Editors, certainly. And one of the big ones that I'm seeing is people on social media teams.
Yeah.
A lot of them can be, I won't say replaced, but augmented to the point that, their productivity is through the roof.
Yeah.
So a lot fewer people are needed on that side.
Yeah. It's funny.
The technology.
I have a
Yeah.
slide open right now, and it's a change in number of Upwork jobs since ChatGPT was released. It's a slide that's going into my show. It's into my presentation, and so writing is the one that's the biggest negative. Obviously, writing is really in trouble, and
Mm.
then social media marketing is up there as well. Customer service, translation are the four kind of big ones directly impacted, and then on the positive side, video editing, production,
Mm.
graphic design, accounting and sales, right? So it's sort of, yeah, it's interesting. It very aligns with what you said. And one
Yeah.
of the things, so I mean, jobs is one thing, skills is a whole other, right? And so I think there's a huge need also for reskilling, and I'm curious your perspectives on this, but it's the soft skills, the human skills, and it's really kind of what your Geeks with Empathy is all about, I think, right? At the end of the day. And so would you kind of agree with me that at the end of the day, everybody needs to double down on what makes them uniquely human and those skills?
Absolutely. It's not going to replace everything. And that's something that I think the media gets wrong, that they like to get eyeballs, and that's what they do. They inflame, they
Hmm.
get people's emotions riled up. But at the end of the day, all it does, generative AI, is takes an average from a corpus of knowledge and says, this is on the basis of probabilities what this person wants to see. And it gives you a giant average of everybody else that had asked that question. So it's just an information retrieval device at the end of the day. You need to know how to use it. You need to know how to interpret it. And that's always going to be a human skill. So there's
Yeah.
always room for creative, driven, process-oriented people. You just
Yeah.
need to understand what you're dealing with.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And the other, I think, skills that are going to be super important. And again, I think this really speaks to your book and speaks to kind of what you're talking about at Geeks with Empathy. But, the ability to actually sell ideas, the ability to have influence over people, the ability to sort of, create a sort of a vision and a big picture as to where things are going. All of those types of things all sort of fit together in this like group of human skills that are going to, I think, become superpowers in the near future here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I would put my kids in is, sales and influencing people. There's always going to be a need for that.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeremy. I don't know if you have anything else to add about your book. Certainly would be curious from you where people can buy it. So why don't we end with that?
Yep, available on Amazon and ebook, paperback. It's on there. About copies, you can contact me directly, and would love to hear what you think about
Perfect. And if
it.
people want to contact you directly, how would they do that?
Easiest way is probably over LinkedIn, where I'm on there as Jeremy Adamson.
Jeremy Adamson on LinkedIn. Wonderful. I appreciate it so much, Jeremy. I know you and I will be talking a lot more soon, but for now, have a great day.
You too. Thanks for the time and thanks for having me.
You betcha.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Tourism AI podcast. To learn more about the network or get involved, visit our website at tourismainetwork.com or find us on socials at Tourism AI Network. We'll see you there.